Should I read that again?
Smart gal. Thank you.
Should I read that again?
Okay. Yeah. We'll go back where we left off at in that one paragraph. So the prayer we talked about being second paragraph on page 13, that I humbly offer myself to God, as I then understood him, to do with me as he would. I place myself unreservedly under his care and direction. And here's the deflation of the ego. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing without him. I was lost. Then we talked about I ruthlessly faced my sins, step 4, and became willing to make my newfound friend, which is God, take them root and branch. 6 and 7, he removes my defects of character. I'm not working on my own defects. And I had to drink since. That's permanent sobriety. Then my schoolmate here that we're talking about is Ebby and Shep Cornell, is the ones that came to the hospital to visit Bill. They visited me and I fully acquainted him with my problems and my deficiencies. Looks like step 4. And then he said, we made a list of people I had hurt. Not people that I had a part with. You know, a lot of times I hear, what's your part in this? No, because I'm more apt to look at your part than I am mine, right? And it's not about a part. It's what are my wrongs or my hurt? How did I hurt? Or toward whom I had resentment. Resentment there. I felt resentment. So resentment, a thought that I resent through my head over and over again. Every time I send that thought through, you get a little worse, I get a little better. You get a little worse, I get a little better. And I express my entire willingness to approach these individuals admitting my wrongs. Steps 8 and 9, never was I to be critical of them. I don't get to do that. There's directions in the book on how to do that. In the ninth step, I was right all such matters to up my utmost abilities. In other words, make all my amends. All, it says, all my amends.
Well, I think too, the difference between listing our resentments and listing who we've harmed is the difference between step 4 and step 8. I start off with, what did they do to me? Because I knew that, you know, I already know your part in it. I got to get over to that 4th column to look at what's my part in it. And I had never looked at that before. Then when we get to step 8, it gets a little different where we're looking at what did I do to them? You know, and that's kind of a new approach. And in light of what we learn in step 4 and 5, in that 4th column of step 4, and when we discuss it with someone, what we learn our character defects are, and those destructive patterns that we have, we can see how that harmed other people. And that's when we come to step 8 and we start looking at what did I do to them? How did my behavior harm other people? And you know, then we've got something we need to work on, and then we need to go out to them and make that right. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. I was to sit quietly in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my requests bore on my usefulness to others. Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure.
I have a definition for God consciousness, or more of a synonym. So I kind of like to break it down because in the beginning, God consciousness seems so complicated to me, and I didn't know what it actually meant. So I break it down as the synonym for conscious is aware, consciousness, awareness, God consciousness, God awareness. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, I was going to test my thinking because now I'm on a different level here, but it says to test my new God conscious. So new means I've never experienced this before. Anytime I see the word new, it's a brand new experience for me. And it says I was to sit quietly when in doubt. Well, when we went over to page 87 in the third paragraph, and you guys can flip over there if you want to and into action. Hang on to page 13 in there, bottom paragraph. It gives us direction what to do here. It says, as we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. And so remember, agitated comes long before rage does too, by the way. I have to remember that. And doubtful, yeah, agitated comes well before anger or rage. And being doubtful comes long before deep trouble. When agitated, we ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show. And this is my prayer, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. We are then in much less danger of excitement Excitement is dangerous for an alcoholic. Fear, anger, worry, self-pity are foolish decisions. We become much more efficient when we do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. So then as we go a little bit farther, it says, we would, never was I to pray for myself, except as my request for my own usefulness to others. That's what I found out, that what life is really about is to be useful to God and all the people about me, and others is lowercase, to God's children. And then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in a great measure. What I receive in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'll never be able to repay back. I remember having my first sponsor, I had him for 18 or 19 years. And I said, dude, I'll never be able to pay you back. He goes, well, you don't owe me anything, but you owe that new guy that walks in the door, every new guy.
I break this down a little differently. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within, as in continue to take personal inventory, that's step 10. And common sense would become uncommon sense, like where it says in the 10-step promises that by this point sanity will have returned. And sit quietly when in doubt, asking for direction and strength, as in knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry that out.
Yeah, I think common sense is like, not that I have much of it, but if I had some, it's my first thought. And that's where I have to pause, because my second thought is unconditional, is that because the first one is conditional, or is considered conventional. The next one is a reexamination of that briefly in my head, or I say a prayer and ask God for the right thoughts and the right actions there. What would you have me be? Not necessarily what would you have me do. Not always about what I need to do. Got a phone call today from one of my daughters, and she's very upset about something. She lives out in Denver. I live in Chicago. And I said a prayer because not the fix-it guy. And what I said was, I'm there for you, whatever you need me to do. What do you need me to do? Not to fix her problem. She wasn't looking for me to fix the problem. So that unconventional thinking came into play because I invited in that power.
My friend promised that when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were essential requirements.
I have the definition of humility, which is defined as freedom from pride. So belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honesty, and freedom from pride to establish and maintain the new order of things were essential requirements.
Thanks.
Yeah, so Abby tells him so that's a promise. My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new, as Nancy said, a spiritual awakening with my Creator. A new relationship, new again. I've never experienced this before. I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. Circle the word all and circle the word way of living. My way of living was the unmanageability in my life. All the things on page 52. Good place to go anytime, even if I have some untreated alcoholism. Go to check it out. The bedevilments. Our way of living here. We get to be people who live two lives in one. That life that I lived before I came in Alcoholics Anonymous, and the life that I live now, they look polar opposite from each other today. But there's a caveat here. I got to live in the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12, and I think that's what he's talking about when he's talking about our way of living. The disciplines of 10, 11, and 12. I need to take that personal inventory, that spot check inventory in 10. I need to have that emotional sobriety that the step 10 gives me. And then have that conscious contact with God, and then break down the 3 parts of the 12 step here. Having had that spiritual awakening, then carrying that message, and then practicing these principles as I practice these principles in all my affairs. I know the word says but as I practice these principles in all my affairs, I'm awake to all those things today. And Mark Houston uses this. How free do you want to be?
I like to, this starts with belief and then maintain. That's a verb. So the belief is great, but without the action, nothing happens. Simple, but not easy. The price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all.
I have the definition of simple and easy. So simple is free from complexity. Easy is free from pain, trouble, and worry. So
Oh,
I like that. Yeah. Huh.
simple in the sentence, simple, free from complexity, but not free from pain, trouble, and worry.
Interesting.
that's new to me. That's a good one, though.
Yeah,
I
I
like
hadn't
it.
heard that definition. Yeah.
So price had to be paid. Means I got to do the work here. Why? Because it means destruction of self-centeredness. That's my problem. My ego regenerates. You know, in Alcoholics Anonymous, Sokworth gave us what the problem was with the body. Jung told us what's wrong with the mind. The thing is, we don't talk about Harry Tiebout, but that's the guy who we have to go outside of Alcoholics Anonymous most of the time to read anything about him. But he's the one that says about the ego has this uncanny ability to regenerate itself. But if I live in the steps of 10, 11, and 12, that is my deflation of ego. As long as I've done the first 9 steps honestly and thoroughly as I could. So that also Harry Tiebout writes that he says, this is dry drunk syndrome if I don't work the steps. That's untreated alcoholism. I've been there and done that in sobriety. I don't care for it any day. This is about a conscious contact with God, but I am responsible for that. Like Nancy said, it's a verb. You want to be a verb in Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, DAA, whatever A you're in. You don't want to be a noun.
These were revolutionary and drastic proposals, but the moment I fully accepted them, the effect was electric. There was a sense of victory, followed by such a peace and serenity as I had never known. There was utter confidence. I felt lifted up, as though the great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound.
Anything, Sam?
I didn't think we would get as far as we have today. So if you guys have any definitions, let me know and I'll define.
Okay.
I'll look them up and define, but I don't have anything as of for the rest of it.
Thank you. That's okay. So the bottom of that paragraph, you know, this is Bill. He's like in his 3rd day of sobriety here, and he's having these experiences. The bottom of that says, God comes to most men gradually. Spiritual experience, right? But his impact, God, on him was sudden, profound, a awakening. Like he explained it. Bill's a poet. Look at this. That's beautiful. And this is experience. I don't get to argue with that. And it's okay. Either one or equal to. He writes the spiritual experience in the back of the book in the appendix 2. We can go to it sometime. I mean, he mentions it many times that we should reference it. But this is his experience. Mine was I had an experience. He had an awakening. Both of them are great. Fantastic.
For a moment, I was alarmed and called my friend, the doctor, to ask if I were still sane. That's ironic. He listened in wonder as I talked.
Yeah, he listened. He did what doctors do well. He wanted to make sure maybe he was insane, you know, but he wondered.
He's still sane. It's like, come on, dude.
You're not. But something happened to him. We can't explain it. Something happened to him.
Someone asked me to define ego, since we're on that topic, and in the 1938 dictionary, it's defined as oneself, a deep interest in oneself conceit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like me.
Yeah, but the ego shows up 2 different ways too. It shows up and says, you know, she left you, but man, if she needed to straighten her stuff out, man, it was her fault. You know, I'm the greatest date in the world. I don't know why she would leave me. But then, like later on that night, I'm like, I'm feeling sorry for myself, and that's my ego too. Like, you know, man, maybe I did have something to do with this. I'm a piece of crap. You know, my ego can show up and tell me I'm the best guy in the world. I'm the worst piece of crap in the world. You know, this is about some sort of a balance, about emotional sobriety, living in the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12.
Finally, he shook his head, saying, something has happened to you. I don't understand. But you better hang on to it. Anything is better than the way you were. The good doctor now sees many men who have such experiences. He knows that they are real.
So the doctor can't explain what happened to him. It was a phenomenon to him, which, being honest, but he's stating a truth there. But you better hang on to it, whatever that is. And that's true in sobriety. Like early in sobriety, when I went to meetings, like I called my sponsor every day. He wasn't the one keeping me sober, but he helped me be accountable. And then I started having a relationship based on honesty. Like I never had an honest relationship with any human being. Even when I was trying to, I didn't know how to do it. But I was able to tell him everything about myself, and I was supposed to start my day from the morning till the night and explain my whole day to him. I wasn't allowed to say, how are things going, David? Good. No, that's not. No, they're not. Dude, you're going to jail. You're probably going to get divorced. Your kids aren't talking to you. You lost your job. You don't have any money left. How are things? Good. It's like, no, they weren't, dude. So I got to share my feelings with them, whether or not they were true or not. It didn't really matter. But he listened. Like he totally gave him undivided attention to me all that time, and it built a rapport between him and I that I had never had with another human being before. And it set me up to have relationships with other people today as I work the steps to have an honest relationship with them too.
I know early on I was often prone to misrepresenting my problems, thinking it was the circumstances that were the problems. But I made that commitment too, that my sponsor's going to get what's really going on. Everybody else can get, I'm fine. But somebody had to know the truth of what was happening with me. Otherwise, all they had left was me trying to fix me, and that didn't work. While I lay in the hospital, the thought came that there were thousands of hopeless alcoholics who might be glad to have what had been so freely given to me. Perhaps I could help some of them. They, in turn, might work with others. This blows my mind. He's detoxing, thinking about helping other people. Something happened to this guy. Something changed him. That is not alcohol.
Isn't he like divinely inspired there?
Yeah, it's gotta be.
Yeah. I mean, that was not my thought. First of all, my thought was I can't help anybody. I knew I couldn't help myself, but to help another drunk? Oh my God.
I wanted everybody to help me. So that was a pain.
Yeah.
David, that's step 12. Where's step 11?
Well, we did that already where we had where did that go?
Page 13, paragraph 4. I was to test my thinking by my new guide consciousness.
I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my promises.
Step 11. Page 13, fourth paragraph.
And there's different parts of step 12 too, because we had the real book here. Yeah, we have the enter on a new relationship with my creator, which is having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. And then we have the working with other alcoholics. And we're going to get a little bit more into that too. We get a little more definite on step 12. Now I've lost my place in here. Okay. Yeah. So here comes more on step 12. Are we ready to go on, or did you have more to say? Okay. My friend emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all my affairs. So that's part of step 12. Particularly, it was imperative to work with others as he had worked with me. Another part of step 12. Faith without works was dead, he said, and how appallingly true for the alcoholic. For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again, and if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it's just like that.
Anything, Sam? No, that's okay. So my friend had emphasized, so that means he's emphatically telling him the absolute necessity of a demonstration. So a demonstration is an action. It's not a words. It's about my words in the 10th step that on page 84. If we would go to that for a second, there's 5 spiritual disciplines that I need to watch for, and I'll just rattle them off. You don't have to jump into page 84. The words I'm looking for are watch, ask, discuss, amend, and turn. So when I turn my thoughts to someone else that I could help, it doesn't mean I have to rescue them out of a treatment center or a hospital necessarily like that. But my experience is that once I turn my thoughts to someone else, I'm not thinking about me. And then I'm more apt to, my feet will start moving in the direction of being of service to other people here. So in all my affairs, you know, as I talked about on page 59, if we read the short version of the 12th step, it says, and we practice these principles in all my affairs, or I could use the word as I practice these principles in all my affairs. That means throughout the day, aware, awake, not asleep, dreaming I'm awake. And particularly it was imperative. That's another word for must, to work with others as he has worked with me. So Abby worked with Bill. Bill knows now he's got to work with other people. And faith without works is dead. Dr. Bob had plenty of faith, tons of faith. I mean, matter of fact, if Bill would have went to Bob and started bashing him over the head with God, Bob would have buried him with his experience with the Bible and all the stuff that he did. But Bill went to him with his experience of what alcoholism looked like, that he had a drinking problem, that once he started, he couldn't control the amount of drink, and once he stopped, he could not stay stopped. And how appalling true for the alcoholic. For if the alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice as other, he cannot survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. That paragraph to me, I mentioned this briefly a couple weeks ago. We lost our daughter, our oldest daughter, to this disease almost 5.5 years now. And the night that took place in my life, I was leaving a meeting. It was a dark, musty night. It was raining out. It was dreary as all heck. And one of my other daughters called me to tell me that my daughter had overdosed again, and it was about a 45-minute drive to the hospital I needed to go to. The first thing I did after that meeting and after that phone call was I called my sponsor and I called one of my best buddies in the program. Not because I was going to drink, because that's what I was taught to do, is to include you in my life. And that thought, if I would have failed to perfect and enlarge my spiritual life, if I would have picked up a drink that night or the next night after that, no one would have blamed me. They would have said, oh my God, I understand completely. That thought never crossed my mind. I was safe and protected. Never crossed my mind. My thought was, how can I be of service to my family? How can I help them? And then we knew that by work and self-sacrifice is over. We cannot survive certain trials and low spots ahead. If we did not work, we would surely drink again. I thank you, Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, for taking me down this path to the steps, because I didn't have to take a drink, nor did I ever have the thought of a drink. God kept me safe and protected. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it's just like that. If I don't practice these principles in all my affairs, I'm going to die. I got to understand, I have no power, no choice, no control. I have no control I have no choice whether or not I pick up a drink again. I have to stay close to that power I have access to today, and I have to practice these principles in all my affairs. It's not a lot to ask. It's easy. It's not simple, but it's easy. Or it's not easy, it's simple. I'm sorry.
Okay. I get confused with the simple and easy. Now we've heard a different definition. But I think too, the idea of practicing these principles in all my affairs, that doesn't just mean in meetings. That doesn't just mean the way I sponsor people. That means, I'm available to my family. That means I'm a good employee. That means, I'm not a bitch in line at the grocery store. All of that stuff. I take this with me everywhere. And then it says too, it's imperative to work with others as he had worked with me, which means carry this message. I'm not out there to help other people. I'm out there to carry this message to alcoholics. This message, not my message. It's not me helping anybody. I only got here because I can't even help myself, So for me to think I'm going to help somebody else is my ego running wild. I'm carrying this message, and there's a difference.
And what if I am the only big book this person ever meets, right?
My wife and I abandoned ourselves with enthusiasm to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems. It was fortunate, for my old business associates remained skeptical for 1.5 years. during which I found little work. I was not too well at the time and was plagued by waves of self-pity and resentment. This sometimes nearly drove me back to drink, but I soon found that when all other measures failed, work with another alcoholics would save the day. Many times I have gone to my old hospital in despair, and talking to a man there, I would be amazingly lifted up and set on my feet. It is a design for living that works in rough going.
Hmm. So him and Lois banding ourselves with enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, guys. Let's get excited about carrying this message. I know enough about this book to be able to help and triage another alcoholic and to get them to a power greater than themselves. To the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems. See, I don't have a drink problem, but I have this unmanageability, which is called untreated alcoholism or a spiritual malady, whatever you want to call it. All three mean the same thing. It was fortunate for my old business associates to remain skeptical for a year and a half. Yeah, of course they did. It's like, dude, you're a liar. You're a cheat. You steal. You can't be counted on. That happened even in my own home. Are you kidding me? Even when I went to meetings every day, I went to meetings every day for 2 years, except for the time I had to go away for a while for the crimes I had committed. But even my wife didn't necessarily believe I was going to meetings. Like, she would look at me really weird when I walked in the door, because he wasn't sure, because I was always drunk or high. Then he didn't find a lot of work. And of course, this creeped in. Plagues of self-pity and resentment. And sometimes never drove me back to drink. But as soon as I found that when all measures failed, so on my own power, which is not something I was supposed to be utilizing here because not sufficient enough, work with another alcoholic, save the day. Always saves the day. Guys, go to a treatment center, go to a jail, go to a prison, work with another alcoholic before, after, and during meetings. On talking to them, I would be amazing, lifted up and set on my feet. I always tell my wife when I get off this thing, and I got to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, my time, to go to work today, but I don't get to go to bed after this because I'm too amped up, right? I love talking about the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love going to treatment centers and talking to them about this guaranteed solution that we have. Guaranteed. It's not a crapshoot like some of us are going to get sober and some don't. Like, if you do this honestly and thoroughly, you too will recover and you will have a life different than our way of living. It is a design for living that works in rough going. The design for living he's talking about is carry this message. It's my obligation. It's not an option. It's an obligation.
I do have the definition of enthusiasm.
Yay.
And it is to be inspired by God.
Oh.
So in the sentence, my wife and I abandoned ourselves with enthusiasm to be inspired by God to the idea of helping other alcoholics to a solution of their problems.
Nice. I gotta say too. Oh, go ahead, David.
No, please. I was going to ask. No, I thought you were going to go on. I thought maybe we should pause before we start that next paragraph. It's pretty lengthy.
I love the idea that he talks about the waves of self-pity and depression. Even though he had this remarkable spiritual experience, it doesn't stay put. There's still work required. He still had to do something with it. And I know, when I came in, not that I enjoyed other people's suffering, but it was a relief to hear that even people who had been sober a while still had some ups and downs. Because if people said, I got sober and I never had a problem again, I got to think, man, I'm doing this wrong, because life is going to happen and there's going to be those ups and downs. But the program helps. The program gives us that design for a living that works in rough going, because rough going is coming. It's not going to be all smooth sailing. So even though, and I thought, boy, I want that instant spiritual experience. I want to wake up tomorrow a new person, and I didn't want to have to do the work. And that did not happen for me. But even though this happened for him, he still had to maintain this. It was still a daily thing. That's how this works.
Yeah, even if we go to page 85, you don't have to go. I'll read it. It says, it's easy to let on the spiritual program of action rest on our laurels. We're headed for trouble if we do, for alcoholism is a subtle foe. We're not cured of alcoholism. What we have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day we must carry the vision of God's will in all our activities. We must. How can I best serve thee? That's my prayer. Thy will be done. These are thoughts that must go with us constantly. We can exercise our will along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. So I can't stay sober or have a spiritual awakening on the work that I did yesterday. I have to practice this every day. I pray every morning. I do on awakening, and I take a spot check inventory throughout my day. I call someone. I do those 5 spiritual disciplines, and then I do an evening review every single night. I never ever miss, and then I thank God for another clean and sober day, every day. You know, it's because I have that daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of the spiritual condition. If I don't do a daily reprieve, if I don't do these disciplines in my life, I don't get to have that daily reprieve. Life is rough going. Yeah, when I lost my daughter, life was rough going. The fellowship came around, and I can't even explain to you, 400 people showed up at that wake, people from all over the country. And this is 5.5 years ago, guys. Man, we have a wonderful fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous. It just amazes me, blows me away, all the friends that I have. They care about me, and I get to care about them in return. And it's all predicated about one thing first, a relationship with power.
I like that idea too about the daily maintenance though, because that sounded like such a chore. And then I thought, I've been all over daily maintenance before, and I've said it before, but I never counted on yesterday's stuff to give me today's buzz. You know, daily maintenance was this is just a little bit different direction, you know, and I got that daily reprieve from untreated alcoholism by drinking and using drugs. You know, I need a daily reprieve from untreated alcoholism by having that spiritual connection and living in this program. There.
Very
I
good,
did it.
guys. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Nancy, so much. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. And I'm as old as you are, David.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Sam, so much too. Appreciate all your great definitions. Anyone have anything? Any questions?
Should I stop the recording?
Or I could read the third step for her and you can stop it. Let's do
Okay.
that. So page 63, second paragraph, guys. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondages of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness of those I would help with thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Thank you guys very, very much. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless. God bless.
God bless.